Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. This video I'd like to show you how to make the large mandala of the series, the Triptych mandala series. This mandala will be growing the medium mandala, which is in essence this one that we made in part 2. I'm going to grow this one further, so that starts at the edge here, I'm going to grow it out into the large mandala. So this is the third and last part of the series. Take you step by step through these rounds. I want to thank you for watching. If you need any more tips like how to deal with gauge if your mandala isn't the right size, I've got some tips for you on my blog. The link is in the video description. Also the yarn amounts and colors are in there too. I want to thank you for watching and let's get started. Round 15. New color yarn, and this is actually the same color as the color that we made the last round in. Continuing from part 2, so this is the medium mandala up to part 2, and then we're going to continue from there. We're going to start in a stitch that's lining up with any of the front post singles from a few rows down. So it doesn't matter whether you take the popcorn or the picot here, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take the picot, but you could just as easily take the popcorn. So you've got the front post single here, there's a double crochet in that, and then there's a back post half double in that, and that's the stitch you're going to start in. So the back post half double, that's in the double crochet, that's in the front post single, so that's the line. Attached there with a slip stitch. So I'm just going to attach my yarn. Now we're immediately going to start the repeat. We're going to skip 3 stitches, so that's 1, 2, 3, skip. Then here in the 4th stitch, work 8 trebles. So it's yarn over twice for the treble, so skipping 1, 2, 3 stitches. So the slip stitch already counts. So we already have the slip stitch. That counts. So then it's 1, 2, 3. And then here in the 4th stitch, the treble. So this is the, just slightly split my yarn. Okay, that's the first treble, and then just pull that slip stitch tight again. So that's the first treble, and now we need to work 7 more because we're going to work 8 trebles in this one stitch. So yarn over twice in the same stitch. Right here. Let me just do that again. 2, this is 3, and this is going to make a shell. It's 4 and 5. Just need a bit more yarn. 5. So you can see how you're going to kind of come all the way around. So 5. So yarn over twice again for number 6. 7, and the last one 8. So 8 trebles in the one stitch. You can see how you've made a shell. We're now going to skip 3 stitches and then work a slip stitch again. So this is the first stitch, so it's 1, 2, 3, skip, and then come to stitch number 4. So 1, 2, 3, and in stitch number 4 work a slip stitch, and that's the entire repeat. So I'm going to do this 19 more times. Going to make 20 of these shells. So again, skip 3 stitches. In the 4th stitch, work 8 trebles, skip 3 stitches, and the slip stitch. Going to yarn over twice, just get you started. So 1, 2, 3, skip, and then work a treble. So that slip stitch counts as a position. So you see I've skipped 3 stitches, and then the treble there is in the 4th stitch. So this is the first of 8 again. So go all the way around, and when you're finishing here on your last shell, you'll make the slip stitch in the same position as where you already started. So where you attach your yarn is where you're going to finish also, and then you can fasten off. round 16. I have a new color yarn on my hook, and we're going to work around the shells and in between the shells in this round. You can start on any shell, doesn't matter which one. And if you look at the shell, it consists out of 8 trebles. We're going to start in the 3rd treble with a back post single crochet. So here's the first. This is the first treble, so that's 1, 2, 3. So this is the 3rd treble. That was one here. We're going to start there with a standing back post single crochet. So around that 3rd one, start with a standing back post single. In the next 3 stitches, the next 3 trebles, they also get a back post single. So this is 1, 2, and 3. So a back post single on the next 3. So in total you now have 4 back post single crochets. The next 2 stitches, this shell now has 2 stitches left, those 2 trebles. I'm going to work a back post half double 2 together over those 2. So that means yarn over for the half double. Then come to the first of these 2 stitches, round the back, pick up a loop and bring up that loop. Then stop. You now have 3 loops on your hook. And repeat this for the next one. So yarn over, around the last post here, pick up a loop and bring it back to your working position. You now have 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and take them all off in one go. And that's the back post half double 2 together. Chain 1, and now we're ready to start the full repeat. This was, well, half the repeat. So now we're going to start the repeat. I'm going to work a double crochet cluster in the stitch that contains the slip stitch here. So from 2 rows down, we're going to cover the slip stitch in the process. So a double crochet cluster is the same as a double crochet 3 together, but worked in 1 stitch and not over 3 stitches. So yarn over, so into the stitch that contains the slip stitch. So you're going to cover the slip stitch with your yarn over and take off 2 loops, stop. So that was once. I'm going to do this 2 more times. So yarn over, pick up a loop, take off 2 loops. That's twice. Yarn over, pick up a loop, take off 2 loops and stop. That's 3 times. Now you have 4 loops on your hook in total. Yarn over and take them all off. So that was a double crochet cluster. Chain 1, and now we're going to move on to the next shell. The first 2 stitches of the shell, the first 2 trebles, get a back post double crochet 2 together. So exactly the same as we did on this last shell, we're going to start here on this one too. So it's very symmetrical. So that means yarn over, around the first treble, pick up a loop, bring forward. This is the first half double. Then yarn over, come to the second stitch from the back. Don't snag any loops. 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, and take them all off in one go. There you go. So back post half double 2 together. The next 4 stitches get a back post single. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Then the last 2 stitches on the shell get the same as on this side, and again a back post half double, 2 together. So yarn over around the first treble, yarn over around the second treble, again 5 loops on your hook, take them all off in one go. Chain 1, and now you've come to the end of the repeat. So everything we've just done, repeat this all the way round. So now we're going to work a double crochet cluster again. So if I just work the cluster with you, then you can do the rest without me. So yarn over, so in this stitch that contains the slip stitch, covering the slip stitch, in essence a double crochet 3 together, but then worked in one stitch. And take off all 4 loops in one go. Chain 1, and now it would be the back post half double, 2 together again on the first 2 stitches of the next shell. Go all the way around, and when you're back at the beginning, you're going to finish off with the back post half doubles. You're going to work those 2 back post half double, 2 together, then close on this first stitch, which is the standing back post single, close on there with a slip stitch, and it's important, leave your yarn attached for the next round. Round 17, we're continuing with the same color, so we're currently in that first stitch with a slip stitch. Chain 1, this does not count as a stitch, and then in the same stitch where we're currently in with the slip stitch, work a single crochet. So in that same stitch, there we go, a single crochet on the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. Next up is the half double 2 together, this back post stitch. Work a half double in there. But this is the 2 together stitch. 1 half double. Now we're ready to start the repeat. So repeat starts with a chain 2, 1, 2. I'm going to work a slip stitch here in the double crochet cluster. So in top of the cluster, work a slip stitch. Chain 2, 1, 2, and now we're going to move on to the stitches that are made here on the shell. A half double in the first stitch. This is the 2 together stitch. Remember, you're going to skip here the chain 1, so come to the half double 2 together stitch, which can be a little tricky to get into. A single crochet on the next 4. So the singles get a single, that's what it comes down to. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Next here is the half double 2 together stitch that gets a half double. And there we go. And now we're at the end of the repeat. So now everything we've just done you do again. I'll just quickly show you the start of the next repeat. So that's chain 2, 1, 2. Going to skip the chain 1 space and then come to the cluster and work a slip stitch on there. Then chain 2 again, 1, 2, and then come to the half double 2 together stitch, this back post and in there work a half double, and then now you're well on your way on the next repeat again. Repeat this all the way round. So when you're, let me just open up the loop here. And when you're all the way around, you're going to be working this last half double in this stitch, and then close on the single crochet with a slip stitch, and you can also fasten off. Round 18, I have a new color yarn on my hook with a slip knot, and in this round we're going to be working cross stitches. And where we're going to start is, if you look at the 6 stitches that are worked on the shell, you have the half double, then 4 singles and a half double. We're going to start in that first of the 4 single crochets, our first one with a standing double. So yarn over and hold on to the loop, and then come to the first single crochet, and in there work a standing double crochet. Now we're going to come back to the half double and kind of crossing over, work a double crochet in that stitch. Yarn over, kind of rolling back into the stitch, pick up your yarn, bring it up. I'm actually not in the stitch. You see I was under the stitch? See, this half double can be a little tricky to get into. There, now I'm in the stitch. See how now I'm in that stitch. Bring up the loop and complete the double crochet. So this is a very small cross stitch. Okay, I'm going to work 2 more cross stitches. This means we're going to skip the next stitch and then come to the stitch after and work a double crochet on there. Then come back to the skip stitch and work a double crochet. Kind of coming back, grab your yarn, bring it all forward and complete the cross stitch. And again, so skip the next stitch, come to the following stitches. This will be the half double. Work a double crochet in there, then yarn over and kind of rolling back, grab your yarn, bring it up a little and complete the double. So you now have 3 little cross stitches, and each cross stitch is worked over 2 stitches. Now we're going to start the repeat unit. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 chains, and skipping everything here in between. So this is the chain 2 space, the slip stitch and the chain 2, so skipping all of this. Come to the 6 stitches you have on the shell, and on those 6 stitches we're going to work 3 cross stitches, so 2, 2, 2. Now to work those 3 cross stitches, skipping the first stitch, which is the half double, come to the single crochet and work a double in there. Now yarn over and come back into that half double. So that half double can be slightly tricky to get into, so see now how I was in that stitch, then roll up slightly and complete the double. So 1 cross stitch, skip a stitch, come to the next stitch, work a double, yarn over, roll back into the stitch we just skipped and complete the 2nd cross stitch. And now come to the 3rd, skip a stitch, work a double crochet. This is again in the half double, yarn over and roll back into the last single crochet we skipped. And cut the cross stitch. Again, the chain space, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again we're going to skip the chain 2, slip stitch, chain 2, and come to the 6 stitches here in between, and work again 3 cross stitches. So repeat this all the way around, and here on your last repeat you're going to work the chain 4, and then close here on this stitch, on this first this standing double. So after that chain 4 you're going to close there with a slip stitch, and then you can also fasten off. Round 19, new color yarn on my hook, and we're going to start in any of these chain 4 spaces. Now it doesn't matter where you start, I'm just going to start in this one. I'm going to start with a standing half double, so yarn over, hold on to that, and in any chain space work a half double, another half double in the same space, 2 half doubles, and I'm just going to move them slightly to the side. Chain 4, and this we're going to do to come down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so chain 4, and now we're going to come down and hit around the cluster stitch from a few rows down, from round 16, we're going to make a front post single. So that means if you look here at the cluster stitch, you just open it up a bit. On the one side it's from the front, then around the back and out the other side. Then grab your yarn and complete the single crochet. So a front post single, so then you're kind of pinching that stitch together. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now come back up to the chain space we were just in, so it's the same chain space, and work 2 half doubles in that chain space. 1 and there we go, 2, and your stitches will roll in, these half doubles, they'll roll in with the chain space, but don't worry, when we work the next round that'll lift them back up. So this is kind of the same idea as we had here with these chains from part 1. We're now going to come to the cross stitches, and this is also the start of the repeat unit. So, chain 1, and now in between the cross stitch, so I'll just open this up, so in between the cross stitch, so it's not really like a chain space or anything, but just in that gap there, I'm just opening up there, in there. So really in between the 2 crosses we're going to work a puff stitch, and that means we're going to be picking up quite a few loops. So yarn over, in that gap, insert your hook, pick up a loop and draw up this loop roughly to your working height. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, so yarn over again into that same gap and draw up a loop. You have 5 loops on your hook, and again now you have 7 loops on your hook, and again, and now you have 9 loops on your hook. Now yarn over, take them all off, and a chain 1 to close the puff stitch. There you go. So that was the puff stitch. We're going to do this 3 times in total. So again, chain 1, and now come to the next cross. Do notice that there are 2 chains here next to one another. The pattern says just chain 1, but remember the first of this chain is still part of the puff stitch. So the first chain is part of the puff stitch, and then the second chain is part of the pattern. Now in the next cross stitch, again, if you just look in between there, I'm just going to work another puff stitch. So 4 times yarn over and drawing up a loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yarn over, take them all off, chain 1. That was the second puff stitch. Just get a bit more yarn because these are yarn eaters, these stitches. Chain 1, and then the third puff stitch in the third cross stitch. So in between here, that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Take them all off, and chain 1 to close the puff stitch. Now again, chain 1, and now we're going to move to the chain 4 space. 2 half doubles in the chain space. 1, 2. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, come down to the cluster stitch from round 16. And around that cluster stitch we're going to work a front post single. That means from the front around the back, come out on the front again, scooping up the cluster stitch, pinching it together with a front post single. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now come up to the same chain 4 space and work 2 more half doubles in there. So 1 and 2. And this is of course exactly the same as what we started with. So now we would again do a chain 1. Well, let me just do that again. Chain 1, and now a puff stitch in the cross stitches, and with chain 1s in between. So everything we've just done here, you can see how this is the same as that. Repeat this all the way around, and after you've done the last puff stitch, remember the extra chain 1, and then close on this first half double with a slip stitch. And when you're at that point, you can also leave your yarn attached for the next round. Round 20, we're going to continue with the same color yarn. Currently in that first stitch, that's at half double there with a slip stitch, and we're going to start with a chain 1, which is not a stitch, it's just to get us up. Now we're immediately going to start the repeat units. What we're going to do is we're going to skip the stitch that we're currently in, so we're going to ignore this stitch and come to the next stitch, and this is the half double here. Then we're going to work single crochet 2 together through this half double, and then on the other side of the chain, that half double. So the chain space and the single crochet that's down here, so the chain single, we're going to skip all of that and a single crochet 2 together on this side and that side, so the 2 half doubles either side. So in the next stitch, so that's this half double, insert and draw up a loop. And now we're going to come to the other side, and there's the stitch there. I'm going to insert my hook in there and draw up a loop. See, now you're either side, and by doing this we're going to pinch these loops together. We're going to grab them together. And now yarn over, take all 3 loops off your hook. So that was a single crochet 2 together. The next stitch is a half double that gets 1 single crochet. So 1 single in there. We're now going to work a little repeat. We've got here the chain space, this chain 1 space. Work 2 single crochets in there. That's 1, 2 singles. The puff stitch, going to skip this puff stitch, so I'm going to jump over it. And this we're going to do 3 times. So that was once. So come to the next chain space, 2 single crochets. That's 1, 2. Then skip the puff stitch. So that was repeat number 2. And then the third time, 1, 2 single crochets, and again skip the puff stitch. Now in the last chain space, this chain space here, 2 single crochets in there. 1 and 2. And then of course going to skip the next half double. That's this half double here. This was the same as the half double we skipped here at the start of the row. And this is the entire repeat. Do this all the way round. So I'll just get you started on the next repeat. So we can start by, so we're skipping this half double, that's still part of the previous repeat. Then come here to the single, I'm going to work a single crochet 2 together. Here the first half double, insert your hook, pick up a loop, then come to the other side of the chain, and there, insert the second part and draw up a loop. Again, 3 loops on your hook, take them all off. This is the start of the second repeat. So then again a single crochet in the next stitch, and here's a chain space which again gets 2 singles, and then you go all the way around. So 2 singles, 2 singles, 2 singles, and then the 2 together. This entire procedure go all the way around, and when you're after here, when you're back at the beginning, you're going to work 2 single crochets in this last chain space, and then of course that half double you're going to skip and then close to the first stitch, which will be the single 2 together, close to that stitch. That's here with a slip stitch, and then you can also fasten off. Round 21. This round we're going to make triangles. I have a new color yarn on my hook, and where we're going to start is in any of the single crochet 2 together stitches. So this stitch or here, it doesn't matter which one. I'm going to take this one. So in the single crochet 2 together, we're going to start there with a standing single crochet. So in the 2 together stitch, a standing single crochet. Now the repeat unit, chain 1, and then come to the next stitch and work a double. So you're not going to skip any stitches. This chain 1 is to get you up from the single crochet to the double crochet. Now again, chain 1, and now in the next stitch we work a treble. So yarn over twice, and then a treble. Again, don't skip any stitches. Chain 1 is to get you up. Chain 1, and now we're going to come down, and in the next stitch work a double. Double crochet. Again, chain 1, so a lot of chain 1s in between here, and then in the next stitch a single crochet. And this we're going to repeat all the way round. So starting from the chain 1 to the single crochet, going to repeat all the way around. Then you're going to have 50 triangles. So I'll show you the repeat again. Chain 1, double crochet in the next, chain 1, treble in the next, so that's yarn over twice, then 1, 2, 3 times, taking off 2 loops, chain 1, the next stitch, work a double, chain 1, and in the next stitch work a single. Now you've done 2 triangles. Go on and on and on. So you can, like I say, I've now worked 2 with you. You need to do 48 more. And after your last stitch, which will be there'll be a double crochet here, then chain 1, then close on this first standing single crochet with a slip stitch, and you can also fasten off your yarn. Round 22, new color yarn on my hook. In this round we're going to work 5 double crochets on every treble, so that's the pointy tip of the triangle. We're going to work 5 double crochets. So yarn over, because the first one is a standing double crochet. Now it doesn't matter which triangle you take, then that center one, the treble here, in that stitch work a standing double crochet. That's the first of 5, so 4 more. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now you've worked 5 double crochets, the standing one plus 4 more in that center stitch there in the treble. Now come to the next triangle, and again in the treble here work 5 double crochets. So in the treble, so 1, 2, 3, need a bit more yarn, 4, 5. So again in that center treble there, 5 double crochets, and repeat this all the way around. So on every treble work 5 doubles, and after you've clear your last triangle, come back to the first one, and here in your first stitch, and there close with a slip stitch, and then leave your yarn attached for the next round is the same color. Round 23, we're going to continue with the same color, and in this round you're going to do a double crochet on every stitch. The first double is a chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, and now on every stitch all the way around, so on the next stitch a double, and that's it. So this round is nice and easy, double crochet on every stitch, and when you get back to the beginning after you're all the way around, close on your first stitch with an invisible join, so the same way we've done before. So fasten off and then thread on your needle, and then on the second stitch now make that hat. So go all the way round, double crochet on every stitch, and close with an invisible join. Round 24, new color yarn on my hook. In this round we're going to work a back post single crochet on every stitch. Now, it doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to start here with, and then the first one is of course a standing back post single. And this is a slow round, I'm aware of that. So just one stitch at a time, back post singles all the way around. And when you're all the way around, close on the first stitch with a slip stitch and leave your yarn attached. So when you're here, close there with the slip stitch, and like I say, leave your yarn attached, because in the next round we'll be attaching the mandala to the ring. When you've completed round 24, this is what your mandala looks like, and we're now going to attach it to the ring. And as you can see, the mandala is slightly smaller than the ring. This is a 40 centimeter ring, and your mandala should be at this point give or take 36 centimeters. So we're again going to stretch it into the ring for the last, on this last part. It's the same process as attaching it to the ring for the medium and the small mandalas. It's too large for me to show it to you in front of the camera. You can really see how I can't even get this entire thing in front of the camera at the moment. So I'm going to show you the footage from the small mandala because it's exactly the same process. The single crochet is 2 together, so I'm going to just cut that into the video and then you're all done. To finish the small mandala, we're going to attach it to the first ring, and this is a ring of 15 centimeters, and your mandala itself should be at this point give or take 13 centimeters. The idea is that it's about 10% smaller than the ring, because we're going to slightly stretch it up to get it to fit nice and snug into the and really open up this pattern. So you want it to be slightly smaller than the ring, about 10%. So mine is 13 centimeters on a 15 centimeter ring. Now to join this to the ring, chain 1. This is not a stitch, it's just to get you to the correct working height, and I'm just going to zoom in a little further so that you can really see what I'm doing on attaching this ring. Going to work a single crochet 2 together in the current stitch, the next stitch, and the ring. Now what do we do? So we're currently here in this stitch with a slip stitch, so I'm inserting my hook into that stitch where I'm currently at, and because there's a slip stitch there, might be a little snug. So into the stitch, then go with your hook underneath the ring, and the yarn is over the ring, and pick up the yarn from the back and bring it forward. Now come to the next stitch, insert your hook into that stitch, go underneath the ring. Your yarn is already here to the back, so grab that yarn and bring it forward. You now have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and take them all off. And that was a single crochet 2 together, worked over the current stitch and the next stitch and the ring. This idea we're going to repeat all the way around, so I'll show you again. In the current stitch, so that's the stitch where we just finished, so you're going to, in that same position, insert your hook, go underneath the ring, the yarn is from the top, grab your yarn, bring it forward. Come to the next stitch, go underneath the ring, pick up the yarn from the back, bring it forward, and take it off, and pull through. And it's important to always take the stitch where you finished as your first yarn over. The reason is that this will result in just more loops covering the ring. So that's why we're doing it this way, as opposed to just working single crochets all the way around, which is of course an option. It's definitely an option. But by doing this, what's happening is that you're going to have more yarn overs covering the ring, so you're going to be hiding the ring better. So that's the idea. So in the current stitch and the next stitch, and then take them off. And this is a slow process, so you're going to have to take your time on working these stitches. So I'm going to make a jump in the video, and then I'll be all the way around, and then I'll just show you the closing, because I'm going to close this with an invisible join. So go all the way around. When you're further through, you'll have to start stretching the mandala and just giving it, easing these stitches around the ring as it stretches up. But continue like this: a single crochet 2 together in the current stitch, the next stitch, and the ring. And when you're here, then I'll see you back. Almost all the way around. I have a few stitches left. See, I've got one unworked stitch there. So current stitch and the next stitch, that's still unworked. So that means here, and then also the next one, and take them off. And the last stitch will be in, well, both of them will be worked already, because you've got here this stitch which already has a loop, of course, and the next stitch, which is the stitch where we started. So there's that slip stitch in there. So both of these already have a stitch. So that's one And then here I'm just going to eyeball where I put it, because it can be a little tricky to get there in there. There. And take off. And that was the last stitch. It looks a little messy here, but don't worry, we're going to fix that. Cut your yarn and open up this loop. I'm going to thread the yarn on my needle, and to make this look more pretty, I'm just going to come into you can either take this stitch or the next stitch, it really doesn't matter, because the idea is we're going to pull this tight anyway. So I'm actually going to take that stitch, I'm going to work over this one. And then pull this a little tight, closing that stitch, and then come back into the last stitch worked in there, and then just push that a little to the back and grab a loop or two at the back also. That'll just help to secure this yarn. And pull this a little tight, closing these stitches and closing this gap. You can see how pretty it now looks. So I'm just going to work away this yarn tail and the one that's to the back here. I do that if I just turn it around by just working into the stitches here that are just under the ring. I kind of tend to hide it there. I'm just going to work away these yarn tails, and then we're finished. And when you've finished the last round, this is what your mandala looks like, how it's set in the 40cm ring. You've now completed Triptych mandalas. You've made the large mandala, you've made a medium one, and you've made the small one. So this completes your entire set. You can hang them against the wall or against a window or anywhere you like to hang them. To thank you for watching. It brings us to the end of this series. I hope to see you again soon for a new project.